Last week, we looked at Genesis chapter 21. And the title of last week's message was, He said it, He did it, as promised. And today's message is entitled, He said it, He did it, as promised, for He is El Olam, God everlasting. He is God everlasting. Now, I don't know you guys, but who among you likes long trips? You like long trips? You like long trips? Now, let me say, meaning long trips in the plane or long trips in the vacation? In the vacation, right? But my kids, they like the trip, not the vacation. They enjoy even the plane ride. Man, I don't enjoy that. Antonio enjoyed plane rides. You want long? As long as there's TV, right? And I remember me and my daughter and my wife were planning this certain trip. And my daughter wants to take the long route. What the hell? The long route. I want a direct flight. And she was like, Dad, it's like 18 hours. Go on. You can go there 12. We'll stop over. I don't like, honestly, I really don't like long flights. I like, honestly, even long trips I don't like. After a few days, I get so restless. My wife knows that. After 2-3 days, I say, I don't like, I want to go home already. But most of, or who likes being stuck in traffic? That's a long trip. As I was saying yesterday, I had a total of more than 4 hours in the car driving. So tiring. So what do? We use the Skyway. Manopi, you take the Skyway. You have RFID, right? It shortens everything, even the pila in the toll gate, right? If you have RFID, you just cut the travel time. You don't have to wait. It shortens the long journey. One of the biggest problems I realize for us Christians is this. Our Christian walk will be long. That's a problem. Our Christian walk will be a long trip. Because as I was thinking, Christianity would be so easy if it was just short. You need to be faithful only for 10 minutes. Okay, I can do that. But if you tell me you need to be faithful for 10, 20, 30 years, that's a different story. And for most of us, our trip will be long. Now, if I told you, Bunny, walk from here to the car, no problem. Short trip. But walk from here to UST, that's a problem. Anything longer becomes a struggle. It becomes difficult. Initially, it might be easy. Then eventually, you get tired. And eventually, you give up. It's like carrying a dumbbell. If you try carrying a dumbbell this way, initially, madali. Even it's 5 pounds. It's easy. Give it a few more seconds, or a minute or two, all of a sudden, that 5-pound dumbbell is feeling like 20. Strong enough, after a minute or two, you feel a burning sensation. And you want to give up. But no, you push forward. But give it 45 minutes to 1 hour, for sure you'll give up. Why? Because it's long. The longer it is, the harder it becomes. And a lot of us, we become weary. We become tired. And same is true with our Christian walk. We become weary, we become tired, because it's a long journey. What if if only our Christian walk was short? Imagine this, the first time you were born again, the first time you fell in love with Christ. Isn't it euphoric? I remember when I was initially born again, I wanted to share the Gospels to everyone, to anything that moves, even the cat. I mean, I share it to anyone. I was burning. And I remember when I was single, during singles, and after that, wow, ang bait ko. For 1 week, for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks, kung magaling talaga yung mga speaker, baka 2 months. But eventually, it would fade. Right? But imagine this. It would fade, and you would go back to your old self. You would go back to your old drudgery. You would go back to your old behavior. But try to imagine this. You were saved and you were burning. You were in love with the Lord. And you were sharing the gospel. You were reading the Bible every day. And one day, you die. Wow. Swerte mo. Your Christian life was faithful. You were on the upswing pa lang. And it was a short Christian life, but it was a fruitful, a blissful Christian life. It's like the difference between you meeting a guy, I don't know with you po, but my parents and my uncles and aunts before, from the time they met to the time they get married is pretty short. I think my dad 1 month eh. From the time they met my mom to the time they get married, a month or 2. My uncle parang and uso dati ilog. Parang usong-uso dati. So, a lot of my aunts, mga ilog. In love, ilog tayo. And the thing there is, try to mind you, you're in love, but my grandfather, medyo strong-willed, nag-ilog, binawi. Galing. But imagine you elope, you're in that euphoric feeling, you're in love, and one day your husband, your wife dies. What will be the thoughts of the wife? Oh, my Romeo died. He was so good. He was so kind. He loved me so much. He served me and all that blah, blah. And she would cry from hours on end. But if he did not die, and he stayed with you for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1 year, 10 years, 20, 40. Pag mga 40 years, how you wish he's dying or has died, right? And when he dies or she dies, you don't know if you're happy or sad. It's different because it's a long journey. And the struggles happens if the journey is long. Same is true with our Christian walk. The struggles happen when the journey is long. And we become hopeless, helpless, frustrated in life. Turn your Bibles to Genesis chapter 21 as we continue. Genesis chapter 21, verse 22. And it says, Now it came about at the time that Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of the army, spoke to Abraham, saying, God is with you in all that you do. You know, we saw last week how God's plan was slowly unfolding. After 25 years of waiting, After 25 years of waiting for a child, all of a sudden, Isaac was born. For God said it, God did it, as promised. Now, we saw last week that when Isaac was born, Sarah became so insecure. She became so insecure on what will happen to Isaac, knowing that Ishmael was there. And as I said last week, Sarah was all pera-pera lang. She was so concerned about the inheritance of Isaac, but she wanted that Isaac would be the only one to get all the inheritance. With that, what she did is she tried to find an excuse, any excuse, to have a reason to expel not only Ishmael but even Hagar. After the weaning of about 3 years of Isaac, as I was mentioning, Abraham had a party, a big party. Because there it signifies that indeed Isaac survived. Because as I was mentioning, most of the kids, they don't survive the first 3 years. That's why they have to be weaned for about 3 years. And after 3 years, then they can say, indeed, the kids survive. And a big party would ensue. Abraham did such a party. And there, Sarah saw Ishmael sporting, mocking. Some commentators is just saying that he was like making fun of Isaac. But because of that, Sarah said, no. Abraham, get rid. Take out Ishmael from my presence, not only Ishmael, but also Hagar. And there we saw Abraham meticulously preparing the provisions. 3 skins of water. And holding to Ishmael until the very last moment. Knowing that the moment that they leave that place, for sure, they would die. Hagar and the mother and the child would be left to die in the desert. Painful. Now, in the desert, we saw, true enough, the resources of Hagar and Hagar and Ishmael ran out. And Hagar placed Ishmael under the bush to die. Painful for any mother. So as that story was unfolding, during that same time, this situation happened. This happened parallel. This was happening there with Hagar, and this is happening now. Simultaneous, the story. While that was happening, this was happening in Canaan. Now, so Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of the army, spoke to Abraham, saying, God is with you in all that we do, all that you do. Because Abimelech had a first-hand experience with Abraham's relationship with God. Remember in Genesis chapter 20, God spoke to Abimelech and said, hey, tell Abraham to pray for you. Tell for Abraham to pray for all your women, because all their wombs are closed. And Abimelech was sick. And indeed, when Abraham prayed for him and the whole nation, everything went well. So Abimelech had a first-hand knowledge that when he said that God is with you, I know that. Because he spoke to me. And he told me to talk to you, to pray for me. And that if you do that, I will be healed. Guess what? It did happen. So I have proof to say that God is with you. That's why here, Abimelech took the initiative. If you notice, it was not Abraham that took the initiative. It was Abimelech that took the initiative because he was afraid of Abraham, given his reputation. His reputation is now resounding. Abimelech knew that it was Abraham that conquered the three kings. Right? How could he have done it? He was an unknown shepherd. And now, in the course of rescuing Lot, he had to defeat three mighty kings: Russia, China, and America. Unbelievable. Not only that, he knew firsthand that he was sick, and when Abraham prayed for him, he got well. Not only that, I'm sure he heard about Sarah giving birth at a very old age. An impossible feat in any form or shape. So Abimelech knew this, that indeed God was with Abraham. God is with you in all that you do. Meaning what? He concluded God is continually with Abraham. He saw the handwork of God in the life of Abraham. Verse 23. Now therefore, he said, swear to me, here by God, that you will not deal falsely with me, or with my offspring, or with my posterity. But according to the kindness that I have shown to you, you shall show to me and to the land in which you have sojourned. For no apparent reason, and we'll show later what that there is. But here, so far, for no apparent reason, Abimelech wants to have a peace treaty, a non-aggression pact with Abraham. He's saying, you've been successful in all that you did do. I want to ensure that you and I, my lineage and your lineage, will live in peace and in harmony for all our descendants. Let's make this treaty between you and me. He said, Abraham, don't be aggressive to me. Show the same kindness I've shown you. Because you remember, what did Abimelech say? You can stay wherever here. I'll allow you to stay. In Genesis chapter 20. I showed you kindness, now promise me, show me kindness. Not only to me, but also to my offspring. For some reason, Abimelech had a feeling that the influence of Abraham will be in perpetuity, will be for a long time. And he wanted to ensure that his generation and his descendants will be protected from any aggression from the side of Abraham. And he said, swear this before God, not just before me. Make this promise before your God that you will not be aggressive towards me or my people, and that you will treat me kindly. Abraham understood what Abimelech was saying. That's why in 24, verse 24, he said, I swear it. I promise that I will not be aggressive towards your people. You, your people, and your offsprings and descendants. And I promise that in front of God. Good. But there's a problem in verse 25. After him agreeing, he said, but Abraham complained to Abimelech, because of the well of the water which the servants of Abimelech. But Abraham complained to Abimelech because of the well of the water which the servants of Abimelech has seized. So he's saying, Abimelech, I agree. But we have one problem. Your people seized my well. You seized. They took control. They forcibly got it. And the word complain here is he brought it several times. In fact, some commentators interprets that as he was berating. He was saying, your people, they've been getting my well. The well that I dug on my own. They got it, they seized it from us. And I want you to determine and tell me, is that right? Was it right for your people to get my well? That was the complaint. Because well is very important during that time. Living in a desert, it's a matter of life and death. Parang pinatay nyo na kami. Yes, I'll not be aggressive towards you. But why are you killing me? What's the story there, Abimelech? And it was your people who did it. Without a well, flocks will not survive. Herds will not survive. Human population will not survive. It's critical. That's why during that time when they were in the wilderness, they were always being raided. Why? Because they heard the news that there was a rock that spits out water. And water was very precious. So this was a big issue. It's a matter of life and death. That you, your people, seize my well. Verse 26. And Abimelech said, I did not know who has done these things. You did not tell me, nor did I hear of it until today. Abimelech denied that he had any knowledge of that incident. I mean, it's pretty hard to believe that. Being the king, probably would know everything that's going on in your kingdom. Especially on the concerns of Abraham. And Abimelech was caught off guard with this accusation of Abraham towards him that he plunges himself in a long line of defense. He was assuring Abraham have nothing to do with that. In fact, I never have heard of it. Never heard of this matter. And thirdly, you should have told me. You should have told me earlier that this had happened. But you didn't tell me. I never knew about it. And it's only now that I found out. Some people believe that Abimelech knew. That's why he took the initiative to make peace to Abraham. Because maybe he found out Abraham's kind of upset. Oh no, Abraham, the guy who prayed to God and were in, and the guy that has God on his side, the God that annihilated Sodom and Gomorrah. I shouldn't get him angry. It's the same guy who conquered the 3 kings. And Abimelech one day found out, what? My people got his well? Oh, I have to go to him. And I will make now a peace treaty to ensure that I don't get me and my whole nation annihilated. That's what I also think happened here. He denies it. But I think that's the primary reason why he, with his general, went to him and said, let's have peace. Come to think, we're not at war. What's the story here? Why do you want peace? Right? Verse 27. And Abraham took sheep, oxen, and gave them to Abimelech. And the two of them made a covenant. The offerings of sheep and oxen was customary, and then they agreed, okay, we have a peace treaty. Then Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flocks by themselves. After giving that and their agreement over and done with, Abraham said, wait a minute. I have another offering. 7 ewe lambs, 7 lambs. But I will make a request for these 7 lambs that I'm giving. Verse 29. Abimelech said to Abraham, what does this 7 ewe lamb mean, which you have set by themselves? Because they're done, right? With the agreement of non-aggression. Okay? To seal our agreement, here are the animals, over and done with. But Abraham said, wait a minute. Sabi nga sa informer, wait, there's more. 7 lambs. And even Abimelech was surprised. Wow, para ke? What's this lamb for? Can you tell me? He was puzzled by the additional 7 ewe lambs. But Abraham explained in verse 30, you shall take the 7 ewe lambs from my hand, so that it may be witness to me that I dug this well. And basically, what he's saying, get this lamb. And if you get it, that is a guarantee for me that this well will be perpetually mine. You have your request. I've given you. Now this is my request. Guarantee this well to be mine perpetually. By accepting it, Abimelech is guaranteeing that. Abraham did not only want a general treaty, he wanted a specific concession. That the well that he dug will be his. The rights for water will be secured. Because sabi ko nga, what's the value of the land if there's no water? It's a worthless land. With that, 31, therefore he called the place Beersheba, because there the two of them took an oath. The word Beersheba means well of the oath. And some would translate it well of the 7. Because they were given 7 lambs. And it was there that the oath was given. You ask yourself, why was this important? Why did Moses included this well? This well, so when you read it, okay, what's the big deal with this treaty? Because by that treaty, it was an unfolding of God's continuous fulfillment of His promise to give the land. Because sabi ko nga, that promised land is without value apart from a source of water. That was critical. It's like living in a village na walang tubig. No one will live there. No one will live in a village na walang tubig. Maglagay ka ng tubig, yan. May bibili ng lupa mo sa village. Pero kung walang tubig, what's the value? Desert pa to. 32. So they became, so they made a covenant at Beersheba, and Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, arose and returned to the land of the Philistines. Both parties, Abimelech and Abraham, both are satisfied. Both were happy. That's why Abimelech and his commanders went home with their covenant, while Abraham remained with a guarantee to use the well forevermore. Now the land could be bountiful. Now the land can sustain life. De facto, he had the possession of the whole region because he was the source of water. With that, verse 33, Abraham planted a tamarisk tree at Beersheba, and there he called on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. With that deal, with that oath, with that covenant, with that agreement, it hit Abraham. He realized what just happened. That the promises of God on the land was being realized. And the security and the assurance for the future generation in that land is now secure. He was overwhelmed. Honestly, when I read this passage, parang wala lang talaga eh. But here, Abraham was so overwhelmed that what did he do in verse 33? He worshiped God. He was so grateful that he worshiped God. The tree that was planted, the tamarisk tree, was a holy tree. For it's not just any tree, it was the tamarisk tree that was planted. It has a religious, symbolic significance. It's a holy tree. It has this image of purification. And at that time, planting that specific tree is equivalent to building an altar. So Abraham built an altar. And what did he do? He called on the name of the Lord. Go to Genesis chapter 12, please. Genesis chapter 12, verse 8 says, Then he proceeded from there to the mountains on the east of Bethel and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. And there he built an altar to the Lord and called upon the name of the Lord. He worshiped. And here, after securing the well, with much joy and gratitude towards God, he built the altar by planting the tree, and he called on the name of the Lord. And he called him what? El Olam. The everlasting God. The enduring God. After many delays, the promises of the land and descendants is now being established. He never thought of it. He never thought that one day it will indeed happen. So maybe in the past, when he got the land, he felt that the promises of God is still not fulfilled. Because what is the purpose of the land if we cannot live and be sustained here? That's why I said, no. God is God El Olam. He is enduring and He is everlasting. He's been faithful in the past. He'll be faithful in the future. And as this promise unfolded in his very eyes, that Abimelech was the one who went to him. to initiate a covenant, and he counter-proposing it with a request for a permanent rights for the well, it struck him. And he ended up worshiping God and calling him El Olam, everlasting God. Deuteronomy 33:27 says, the eternal God is your refuge, and underneath are the everlasting arms. The planting of the tree, calling the name of the Lord, calling him El Olam, signifies that something great just happened. Something really great happened. That's why he worshiped God, thanking God, as he sees the plans of God unfolding, the promises of God unfolding. 34, and Abraham sojourned into the land of the Philistines for many days. Peace and stability is at last in their hands. These things provided a concrete evidence of the continual blessings that Abraham is receiving. The continual assurance that the promises of God will be fulfilled in his time. Go to Isaiah, please. Isaiah 40, verse 28. Isaiah 40, verse 28 says, do you not know? Have you not heard? The everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, does not become weary or tired. His understanding is inscrutable. Don't you know that? His strength is tireless, his wisdom unfathomable, and he does whatever he wishes in his own time. Apparent delays never means either lack of awareness or lack of ability on the part of God. They are just apparent delays. But that doesn't mean that God does not care or God is not able. He is El Olam. He is enduring and he is everlasting. It is only a matter of time, in his timing, not our timing. In his timing, based on his plans. That's important for us. We have to know the plans of God in our life. And we have to align our life to the plans of God. In this case, it took Abraham 25 years to have Isaac. It took Abraham 25 years for him to realize that the land will be sustainable. But that long delay did not weaken the attributes of God. It only solidified the attributes of God, that he is indeed everlasting. That long delay and its fulfillment only proves what? He is reliable. That the delays in our life means nothing, has really no relevance. It does not make God unfaithful. It does not make God not able. And we have to see this, that he is a God that fulfills his promises. In Psalm 90, a famous psalm, when Moses wrote this, He was writing to a people that's about to die. A generation that's about to die. They've been in the wilderness for 40 years. And is about to cross the Jordan River to enter the promised land. They left Egypt with Moses. And now for the first time, they're about to enter Canaan. But the problem was this. All those 20 and above will not enter. They will not see. They will not set foot in the promised land. Why? Because they believed the majority report and did not believe the minority report. And the question is this: what will happen to us? Psalm 90 verse 1 to 6 says, and that's the context of Psalm 90 verse 1 to 6. Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were born, or you gave birth to the earth and the world, even from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. You're El Olim, the everlasting God. You turn man back into dust and say, return, O children of men. For 1,000 years in your sight are like yesterday when it passes by, or a watch in the night. You have swept them away like a flood. They fall asleep. In the morning they are like grass, which sprouts anew. In the morning it flourishes and sprouts anew. Towards evening it fades away and withers away. Not only does this passage show that our life is temporal and very short, but that passage tells us that we have a faithful God who has been faithful to us in eternity past, and will continually be faithful to us in eternity future. A lot of times we worry. We worry about the future. But this character of God, El Olam, should be an assurance to us that we have a faithful God who has been faithful to us in the past. We should anchor ourselves in knowing that He's been faithful to us in the past, with knowing that He will continue to be faithful to us in the future. Go to Matthew chapter 6, please. Matthew chapter 6, verse 25 to 34. And I read, therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or what about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more important than food, and the body more important than clothes? Hey, look at the birds in the sky, in the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than them? Who of you, by worrying, can add a single hour to your life? And why do you worry about clothes? See how the lilies of the fields grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will He not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? So, do not worry, saying, what shall we eat? What shall we drink? What shall we wear? For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. What is the chief end of man? The short catechism says, the chief end of man is to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. And how can you glorify God if you constantly are doubting His ability to take care of us? When we worry about tomorrow, we are doubting God's ability to take care of us. Since we are called to serve and glorify God, we are not to worry. Because when we worry, we are not trusting God. We should know, we should not worry, because we should know that our God is not only willing but able to take care of you. He says, even the birds, I've taken care of them. Have you seen any of them sowing? Have you seen any of them storing in barns? I took care of those birds. So why worry? I'm able and I'm willing. Exhibit A, the birds. Exhibit B, the lilies. What more you? You're my child. If God takes care of these little things, will He not much more take care of you? So why worry? We are not to worry, but to trust Him. But I know some of us, including myself, we worry about the future. And the reason why a lot of Christians worry about the future is because they have little experience on the faithfulness of God in the past. Why? Because they have not lived their life with Him. They have not walked with Him. They have not trusted Him. They were not found in Him. They have little experience in the past about God's faithfulness. That's why they have little faith in God in moving forward. If we are to build our faith, we have to also remain faithful to Him. We have to walk with Him. We have to talk to Him. We have to be with Him. We have to serve Him. The more we are faithful to Him, the more we will be faithful to Him. Because the more you are faithful to Him, the more you will see that He is faithful. That He is El Olim, the God that is everlasting and the God that is enduring. It's a vicious cycle. If you don't trust God now, guess what? You will not trust Him more tomorrow. Because there's no basis. Panay haka-haka lang. Panay thesis lang to. But the more you trust God today, the more you will trust God tomorrow. Because He will always remain faithful. Now, we are not to worry simply because God says for us not to worry, and we think by not worrying, God will bless us. Oh God, I'm not worrying anymore, huh? Now bless me so that I can really not worry. Because I can say, God, I'll not worry now. I'll act it out. I'm not worrying. Now, bless me because I'm worrying. No, we will not worry, not because God will bless us. We will not worry because we know we have a God who's willing and able to unfold His plans and purposes in our life. That's why Abraham worshiped, because he saw God unfolding His plans. Now they have a land, and now they have a well to sustain the life of the Israelites in the promised land. He is God everlasting. He is our God that is enduring. He is El Olam. He will keep His promise. And we are to remain faithful to Him. And we should open our eyes to see the wells that God has been opening. Sometimes we don't see that A lot of times, we're not grateful. We're not even grateful that that we went here, that we had money to pay gas. Di ba we take that for granted? That we had a vehicle, we have clothes to wear. We don't recognize sometimes the faithfulness of God in our lives. And now we think He's unfaithful. The mere fact that your heart is beating is because of His faithfulness. The mere fact that the next breath you take is because of His faithfulness. When we don't realize that, we become ungrateful. We have a wrong view of who God is. Therefore, we don't want to trust Him. We worry. My desire is for us to open our eyes and see God's work, and realize that He is El Olam, an enduring, everlasting, faithful God who will fulfill His plans. Not your plans, His plans in His time. He will never be late. He is eternally faithful in the past, and He is eternally faithful in the future. I was just thinking this morning in my bed. I was just meditating on who God was this morning while lying down. And I realized, I can't believe how people would go against God. These mga kings in the Old Testament, even now, we have a thick book that shows that He is a faithful God. All His promises will come true. All His plans are secure. All His timing is perfect. And yet, I cannot apply that in my life today. But we have a book full of His faithfulness. And we have our friends and relatives and references to know that God is a just God. And yet, when it comes to my life, I said, no. That's just a book. That's just a story. And we doubt on Him, His power, His goodness, His love, His ability to fulfill His plans. I really pray that our eyes has been opened. As much as the eyes of Abraham was opened when that well was given, our eyes might be open to all the blessing that God gives us. And with that, we will strengthen our faith to be more faithful in the future. Thus says the Lord.